Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Excuse the roosters in the background, hens, where we have those. So, excuse that in the background. So, feedback is greatly important. Please feel free to give comments either through email, Substack, X, and of course, fill those comments on YouTube. Be greatly appreciated. And I can't reiterate this again. It's unfortunate with how things go with the algorithm on YouTube. And please let me know if it was any dirty bird content, you know what I mean, X-rated content suggested my channel. Please let me know about that, because I've been flagging it down, and that's not what I'm about, and I don't want my stuff associated with that. So keep that in mind, and I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so this episode centers around the origin and the aspects of banshees and how they're seen in society. And I'm also going to give my feedback on this. Piper. Okay, sweetie. Piper, hold on. Hey, let's be quiet for a minute, okay? Sorry about that. My daughter's playing. And I'm also going to give my commentary about how, the concept or the aspect of Banshee being in a biblical setting with Lilith. All right, so here we go. All right, so I want to give my thoughts about banshees and how they're reflected in society and in the biblical aspect of banshees. All right, so initially, the introduction of a banshee was just, as a kid, and then understanding more about it, in teen years and adulthood. So that is this really scary woman walking about and pretty much being a demon. And so getting older and understanding more and more about it, it seemed as if it was a reflection about the aspects of power and the determination of the way that the aspects of being controlling and the determination of being controlling what that fate has for the aspects of femininity. And so when it goes into these things, it's really prevalent, and I'll go into more detail about the aspects of everything when I'm talking about Lilith and that whole story. So I don't quite know the origin of that, of why that came to be, but from my theory, I think it's a thing that just popped up because of feminism. And so it's another means to an end to say that the aspect of being not subjective, but being submissive to your husband was something that was a thing that wasn't really in the divine order, It was something that, again, trying to humanize or trying to make it seem as if that's something that is weak or something that's negative, a negative connotation to be submissive to your husband. And also another attack of the Christian faith of being a spiritual person, that somehow that is, again, being spiritual and particularly being Christian, that's somewhat flawed thinking about being submissive to your husband, that you're not a forward person, you're not of modernity, With that being said, I'm going to go into all the details about the Banshee. And forgive my throat, I'm a bit under the weather. The weather here keeps changing. It's hot, cold, and it's the whole thing. But I digress. So, here we go. Okay, so first I'm going to read the AI response of the term Banshee and its origin. And then I'm going to go into an actual source and the details about banshees. So it says, according to Irish folklore, the banshee is a female spirit who appears to certain families as an omen of death. The origin of the banshee is surrounded in mystery, but various theories and legends have emerged over time. Early 8th century theory. One theory suggests that the banshee originated in the early 8th century when Irish women would lament the passing of warriors or soldiers with mournful songs. These women were allegedly offered alcohol as payment, which was considered contradictory to Christian values by the Irish Church. As a punishment, these women were said to have been transformed into banshees, forever doomed to wail and mourn the deaths of their kin. Another theory connects the banshee to the fairy folklore of Ireland. In Irish mythology, the Danann, believe the pronunciation of that, a group of supernatural beings, were said to have been driven underground by the Malsayans. Over time, these fairies were believed to have evolved into the various types of fairies and spirits, including the banshee. The banshee is sometimes referred to as a woman of the fairy mounds or fairy woman, suggesting a connection to this supernatural realm. So, Gaelic origins. The term banshee itself comes from the Irish language, with being sea, meaning women of the fairy mound or fairy woman. The Gaelic origin is reflecting in the various regional accounts of the banshee's appearance and behavior, which often differ in detail but share a common thread of supernatural mourning. All right, so family associations. Traditionally, the banshee is said to appear to specific families, particularly those of ancient Irish stock, such as the O'Neills, O'Donnells, O'Connors, and O'Learys. So according to legend, the banshee could not lament over individuals of Saxon or Norman descent who came to Ireland later. The family association is reflected in the surnames associated with banshee, which often have the O or Mick or Mac prefix, according to the origin. So shape-shifting and mythological significance. Some theorists propose that the banshee was originally a goddess with power over the life and death, capable of shape-shifting. This mythological significance is reflected in the accounts of banshees transforming into various forms, such as birds or giantess. This aspects of the banshee's nature may have been influenced by the Irish mythological tradition, which features numerous examples of shape-shifting heroes and gods. In summary, the origin of the banshee is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon drawing from Irish folklore, fairy mythology, and Gaelic language and culture. While various theories and legends have emerged over time, the Banshee remains an integral part of Irish folklore, symbolizing the mysterious and often eerie connection between the supernatural and the mortal world. And the sources I will read off for you that is connected to this AI-generated explanation is Connolly Cover, Britannica.com, the Irish Road Trip, and the Irish Myths, and Wikipedia.org, just to name off a few. All right, so I'm going to give my afterthoughts about all of this and then get into the details of the matter of the source that I found about banshees.
Mommy.
And of course, these sources will be provided for you in this episode. All right, so Banshee. Being an Irish and other Celtic folklore whose mournful keening or walking, screaming, or lamentation at night was believed to foretell the death of a member of the family of the person who heard the spirit. And this is the more detailed version source instead of the AI version. So families of pure Irish descent, the Welsh counterpart, the Grachi Rebekin, Witch of Rebekin, is visited only the families of the Welsh stock. So the Scottish novelist Sir Walter Scott mentioned the belief in a kind of banshee or household spirit in certain Highland families. So Gaelic, people of the goddess Danu, in the Celtic mythology, were in the habitation of Ireland before the arrival of the Mycenaeans, the ancestors of the modern Irish. They were said to have been skilled in magic. And the earliest reference to them relates that after they were banished from heaven because of their knowledge, they descended on Ireland in a cloud of mist. They were thought to have disappeared in the hills when overcame by the Mycenaeans. So the Libar, Book of the Invasions, is a fictitious history of Ireland from the earliest times. It treats them as actual people, and they were so regarded by native historians up to the 17th century. So in popular legends, they have become associated with the numerous fairies still proposed to inhabit the Irish landscape. So fairy, a mythical being of folklore and romance, usually having magical powers and dwelling on the earth in close relationship with humans. It can appear as a dwarf creature, typically having green clothes and hair, living in the ground or in a stone heap, and characteristically exercising magic powers to be benevolent. So to be benevolent ends as a diminutive sprite, commonly in the shape of a delicate, beautiful, ageless, wingless woman dressed in white clothing. So inhabiting fairyland, but making usually well-intentioned intervention in personal human affairs, or as a tiny, mischievous, and protective creature generally associated with a household earth. Okay, so I'm getting to the aspects about Lilith. So, as I was mentioning earlier about Lilith, I think it was just an aspect of actually saying, without saying, that the linear passage of Adam and Eve is actually a correction of what went on as far as the notation of Lilith, that Lilith in herself was of equal status of Adam, and that's how the order is originally thought of between man and women. And then, so, when you, and then I'm going to read in the details and, find it quite fascinating in the research that I found about the the origin of Lilith, what the goddess of her, where that comes from. But it's just one of those things to look at it on this surface level. What are you actually saying by saying these things and uplifting these things, and then presenting these things in main culture, mass media, saying as if this again is Lilith. The character of Lilith is a omission out of the canon because who created the canon? They can't really handle. They don't really appreciate the aspect of a strong woman, when in actuality, if you have that connotation of masculine traits as a woman, that's not really strong in itself, because you're not protecting the essence and the biology of what you come from, the roots of what femininity is all about. So that, and you're saying what are you actually saying? You're saying you're test who you actually are. And so one of those things, too, looking at it personally about the aspect of Christianity, the Christian text. So it's one of those things it's odd when people take, there's some things you take literally in the Bible, some things you just don't. You just see it as a metaphor, and then you recount and you think about the aspects too, which is very helpful, which a lot of, it's just it's understandable as part of the, human condition. But to not see things take things in account for what they were working with at the time, and then use that as another regulation of how to understand the Bible. And then also, these things too is something that really take into account when you're hashing out things as far as time and the aspects of the lineage and the genealogy of all the people that are in the Bible. So with that being said, I'm going to go into the details about Lilith. The source, of course, will be provided for you in this episode. So it says, for 4,000 years, Lilith has wandered the earth, figuring the mythic imaginations of writers, artists, and poets. Her dark origins lie in Babylonian, the terminology of this, demonology, really. And incantations were used to counter the sinister powers of this winged spirit who preyed on pregnant women and infants. Lilith next migrated to the world of the ancient Hittites, Egyptians, Israelis, and Greeks. She makes a solitary appearance in the Bible as a wilderness demon shunned by the prophet Isaiah. In the Middle Ages, she reappears in Jewish sources as the dreadful first wife of Adam. In the Renaissance, Michelangelo portrayed Lilith as a half-woman, half-serpent, coiled around the tree of knowledge. Later, her beauty would captivate the English poet Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Her enchanted hair, he wrote, was the first gold. Irish novelist James Joyce cast her as the patron of deleting your child. And wow, that is rough. And then this without saying, and what are you saying about that? Like, and with the whole aspects of that, with to put such things together. It's, it's sacrilegious in itself. If you break it down with the act of, which this whole thing with the aspect of abortion and things of that nature. Yeah, hold on, sweetie. Okay, baby. As soon as I finish, I'm gonna make food for you. Okay, I'm gonna make oatmeal for you. Okay. So, if you put it in this context, now this is a thing within itself, it's still going to be the things, right to choice, and it's going to, but, I'm full a full proprietor, if you can't guess that or not, of pro-life. And so, with that being said, I don't know, it's one of those things, if these people who push this thing about pro-choice would see this aspect too, about, and then, you just give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just discretion of youth, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, to each his own with that. But, see, that is actually the process of, murder, really, doing that, take that into consideration about it, then, these things won't be so lightly touched or lightly portrayed in society. And then it's also interesting with the aspect of this too, that the most extreme circumstances in the cases of abortion is suitable for women's rights or women's protection. But even in that, think about the aspect of being gentle to life, being cradling and understanding of life. That's, I don't know. But with that being said, that's a word for thought there. So let's get into the other aspects. So modern feminists celebrate her bold struggle for independence from Adam. Her name appears as the title of Jewish Woman magazine and the National Literacy Program, an annual music festival that denotates its profits to battered women's shelters and breast cancer. So research institutes is called the Lilith Fair. In most manifestations of her myth, Lilith represents chaos, seduction, and ungodliness. Yet in every goss, Lilith has cast a spell on humankind. The ancient name Lilith derives from a Sumerian word for female demons or wind spirits, and dwells in the desert lands and open country spaces, and is especially dangerous to pregnant women and infants. And how she's presented, her breasts are filled with poison, not milk, and is a very frustrated and infertile female who behaves aggressively towards young man. So the notation of that. So the other surviving mention of Lilith's name appeared in Gilgamesh and with the Hulupip tree, a Sumerian epic poem found in the tablet of the Ur and dating from approximately 2000 BCE. So the mighty ruler Gilgamesh is the world's first literary hero. He boldly slays monsters and vainly searches for the secret to eternal life. In one episode, after heaven and earth had separated and man had been created, Gilgamesh rushes to assist Inanna, a goddess of erotic love and war. In a garden near the Euphrates River, Inanna lovingly tends a willow, and the willow with the Hulupip tree, the wood of which she hopes to fashion into a throne and bed for herself. So Inanna's plan are nearly thawed. However, when a dastardly, possession of the tree comes, the villain is Lilith. So to her charging, found herself unable to realize her hopes, for in the meantime a dragon had set up its nest at the base of the tree, causing the zoo bird to fly to the mountains and a terrified Lilith to flee to the desert. So in the 1930s, scholars identified this voluptuous woman as this terracotta plaque called the Burney Relief, and the Babylonian demoness Lilith. Today, the figure is generally identified as the goddess of love and war, known as Inanna of the Syrians and the Ishtar and the latter Akkadians. So both characters are the feature in the poem Gilgamesh, as I was saying. So, in the King James Version, Lilith is translated as a screeching owl, apparently alluding to the demon's night flights in search of prey. Originating about the same time the Gilgamesh epic is a terracotta plaque of this, and she stands atop, and I'm going into more details about this, so you know even more about the plaque. So she stands atop two lions and between the two owls, apparently bending them to her will. So Lilith's association with the owl is a predatory and a nocturnal bird, begs a connection to the flight of night terrors. Over time, people throughout the Near East became increasingly familiar with the myth of the Lilith. So I'm going back to the book of Isaiah. So, as in Isaiah 34, a Hebrew prophecy spanning many years, the book has 39 chapters, frequently referred to as the first Isaiah, and can be assigned to the time when the prophet lived, approximately 742 to 701 BCE. So so it'd be 701, 742 BCE. Throughout the book of Isaiah, the prophet encourages God's people to avoid entanglements with foreigners who worship alien deities. In chapter 34, a sword-wielding Yahweh seeks a vengeance on the infantile Midianites. So Yahweh is a Hebrew version of saying of God, So Pernell, the permanable of the outsiders and foes of the ancient Israelites, according to this power, apocalyptic that is, poem idiom will become a chaotic desert land where the soul is not fertile and wild animals roam. Wildcats shall meet. Hyenas, goat demons shall greet each other. Thereto the Lilith shall respond, and after herself a resting place. Isaiah 34:14. The Lilith demon was apparently so well known to Isaiah's audience that no explanation of her identity was necessary. So the Isaiah passage lacks specifics in describing Lilith, but it locates her in this place. So the Bible version thus links Lilith directly to the demon of Gilgamesh, of the Gilgamesh epic, who flees to the desert. So the wilderness traditionally symbolizes mental and physical barrenness, and is a place where creativity and life itself are easily exhausted. Lilith, the feminine opposite of masculine order, is banished from fertile territory and exiled to barren wasteland. So, English translator of Isaiah 34:14 sometimes lack confidence in the reader's knowledge of Babylonian demonology about this. So the King James Bible prose reading rendition of the poem translates the Lilith as the screech owl, recalling the ominous bird-like qualities of the Babylonian she-demon. The revised standard version picks up on her nocturnal habits and tags her the night hag instead of the Lilith, while the 1917 Jewish publication of Society's Holy Scripture calls her the night monster. The Hebrew text, in its best translation, employs the word Lilith and the Isaiah passage, but other versions are true to her ancient image as a bird night creature, also known as a hag. While Lilith is not mentioned again in the Bible, she does resurface in the Dead Sea Scrolls from the Quorum sect, as engrossed with demonology, and Lilith appears in the Song of Sage, a hymn possibly used in exorcisms. And it goes into detail about that. So it says, "And I, the sage, sound the majesty of his beauty to terrify and confound as the spirits of destroying angels and the spirits of the demons, Lilith with a strike suddenly to lead astray the spirits understanding and to make desolate of the heart." Wow. So, centuries after the Dead Sea Scrolls were written, learned rabbis completed the Babylonian Talmud. Final editing circa 500 to 600 CE, and female demons journeyed into scholarly Jewish inquiries. So the Talmud, the name comes from the Hebrew word meaning study, is of the legal discussion, tales of great rabbis, and meditations on Bible passages. So the Talmud refers to Lilith or a few, but they provide a glimpse of what intellectuals thought about her. So the Talmud's Lilith recalls older Babylonian images. For her, she has long hair and wings. So the Talmud image of Lilith also reinforces older impressions of her as a succubus, along the lines a demon in female form who has, is intimate with man while the men were sleeping. So this is the unwholesome practice is linked to Lilith as she powerfully embodies the demon lover myth. So, with this said, and I'm closing out with everything with the aspect of banshees and the aspects of Lilith being associated with this, and the aspect of Lilith in itself. It's just quite interesting with these tales, with it was saying about the aspect of the going to the biblical Proverbs, where Jesus said, you reap what you sow, which is, associated with Jesus. I believe he said that, but, association with Jesus. And the aspect of, put it in this context, you put out there into the universe, and it comes back to you. So and better when good or worse, in this case worse, it'll come back to you. And it's really something to think about also with the aspect and the lineage of how mythology is seen and thought of, and how it connects to the aspect of horror, and the aspect of what we think about when images conjure in our minds about Halloween too. So I'd like to know what you all think about this episode, and then also particularly with the aspect of the lineage of the Irish and the Celtic tellings of banshees, and going on to the aspects of Lilith too, and society, and the biblical aspect of Lilith too, connecting that in the terms of, accounts about this. And then also with, other civilizations and the aspect of Babylonia and all of these things. So feel free to either email me, find me on Substack, make comments on Substack, make comments on X, and of course fill up those comments in YouTube. It'll be greatly appreciated. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harvey and Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care out there. Bye-bye for now.